Call the Board of Public Works meeting of January 29th to order. At this time, I'd like to ask if anyone is recording besides LCAP. Seeing none. First order of business will be to review and approve the minutes of January.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 8, 2013.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Executive, right? So
Make a motion that we approve the executive session minutes of January 8, 2013.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. 5:05. Look at that, huh? Bill, welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen.
How are you? Good. New findings?
Yeah, I hope that we've addressed what I think, as far as I know, is the primary issue last meeting, which was the waste removal and disposal. I've done a lot of legwork since then. I've been to Bondi's a couple of times, talked to 3 different levels of individuals there, and did a lot of what I consider negotiating, I guess. And they have actually volunteered to donate the cost of incineration for the waste. All they need to know is how it's going to be identified, basically. So they can, because you know how it works. You go in, it gets weighed, then they come out and gets weighed again, and that's the difference. So they said they're willing to do that.
Okay. So were you going to do it with pickup trucks and volunteers? Was that the plan, or were you
I thought
still looking to the DPW to...
Yeah, I thought the plan was we were just going to have the waste incineration paid for, is the way I thought we left it.
Right. Because I think we have some discoveries on our part in terms of cost that it would take to pick it up.
Right. John, I didn't have, I had several conversations with Waste Management also, and they didn't really volunteer anything to us, so that's a separate thing. I was trying to identify the cost for the town to pick up, deliver, dispose of this. He's right, you go in with an empty truck, they weigh your truck, and then you go back with the load, and the difference between the weight is how they charge you. It's the charge is by volume, the weight of whatever you're bringing in. On an average, it's like 75 pounds, I think, each time it's picked up, and it's got to be done 2 or 3 times a year, depending on the season. The summer months, it's very busy. There's still people in there now, but the volume isn't quite as much right now. The cost isn't on our end is for employees would be to bring it down there. We're thinking about an hour and a half to pick it up, put it in the vehicle, 20 minutes down, 20 minutes there. It's not a really quick process in there. Weighing in, many times you're in line with other vehicles and out and coming back, which would be about, if it's done twice a week, it would have to be, would be about $60 a week. At the end of the month, it would be $240 for us to do this twice a week. If it were more, obviously that would be $30 a trip. In addition to that, or less, you can knock $30 off each trip. But that's just the employee. That's not the vehicle, the fuel. So just and the availability of the employee through the summer seasons. Because this isn't something that we can wait. We can stockpile, we can put aside, we can hold off on it. If the barrels overflow, they overflow. It's not something that we can put off. So compared to the $90 to $100 a month that was quoted from McNamara, it's a considerable difference in our employees going to pick this up and delivering it. And that would be the lowest paid individual as far as labor, skilled worker.
Okay. Thoughts, comments? I mean, it's obviously at 90 to 100 to have somebody take it per month, or for us at 200 plus.
It wasn't a written quote that they gave us.
Yeah.
It was just on the phone. They were kind of guesstimate, so I don't know. I would get something, I guess I'd get something a little more, definite on that, I guess. But that would be, well, I guess if that's what you decide to do, then that would be just the cost that we would have to come up with then. So instead of the cost of what we're talking about, what John's talking about, the cost would just be shifted onto us to do that. And I guess, I'm not sure. I guess you know, the other option would be, if that's the case, is that we would be the ones to take it to bodies and get incinerated for free.
Right.
And maybe, you know, maybe the town could just leave the barrel there and supply the bags, maybe, something like that, or...
Whatever the board deems.
Yeah.
And this isn't anybody against what you folks are doing, and we see that there's a lot of folks going in and out of there. But once it goes into textiles,
That's going to be the issue.
we have
No, I understand.
the facts.
What it's called.
I guess
Bags and barrels are reasonable.
I think bags and barrels are reasonable. I think we'd be hard pressed to give you a guy 2 or 3 times a week to make that trip. You know, taking him out of the workforce to do something like this 2 or 3 times a week would probably be a bigger issue. I think the bags and barrels are a reasonable request. I don't know what you think about them.
I think that if they're small enough bags, barrels, so they can handle them too, not the big
Right.
55-gallon barrels, because they'd be too heavy to lift, so.
Well, the one that's there now would probably be a good size to keep, I would think. I don't know if that's a full 55 gallons
It
or not.
is, and that's not a problem. I think that
The bags, you can pull the bag out, or
it's
you...
going to depend on the individuals removing the debris or the waste, because if they wait too long, they get very heavy.
They do.
And if they do it on a regular basis, it's not really going to matter if the barrel's only half full or quarter full. It doesn't really matter. It's probably better to have the larger barrel. The bags are very heavy duty, but I think probably the bigger barrels might be better.
I don't know who has, I guess I'd have to investigate what we have in terms of vehicles and, you know, that sort of thing. I don't know if, well, I guess I want to approach the part about using a town vehicle and have one of us try, but I guess that wouldn't be reasonable.
No, not very. No. So, I think what caught us here is obviously checking into how much it would really cost, is, you know,
Yeah.
either having somebody pick it up, like a waste removal company, or if you have the arrangement where they're gonna donate the incinerating,
Right.
you just need some volunteers possibly to have, who have a trailer or a pickup truck or, you know, a
Yeah.
vehicle where they could run it down and...
Yeah, because we have the volunteers to take it out even every other day, like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which I think is kind of what they're doing right now. It's just, you know, I think there was one week, for some reason, whatever the reason was, a couple of weeks ago or so, that it did start to fill up for some reason. Just maybe someone was on vacation. I don't know what the reason was, but so we had a couple of people step up and pick, you know, and take the bag. And as far as I know, they, you know, took it home and, you know, probably, you know, dispose of it in the city waste or something like that. But and I don't know. You know, I know we talked a little bit about, you know, if it was spread out, you know, it would basically go into the normal trash. If like individuals take it, like they're at
Right.
home, if it was at home, for instance, in the individual bags. If they were picked up 3 times a week and went their separate ways, you know, to somebody's home for disposal.
Well, if you don't involve the town, I mean, I'm sure there's appropriate places to dispose of it. I mean, it's gonna be up to whoever the responsible people are to take it out of there.
Right.
I mean, if I'm just a public citizen and I take it out of there and I don't dispose of it properly, I'm gonna be on the hook, you know?
Right.
And if that gets back to us that's happening, then you're gonna be on the hook, so.
Yep.
You know, because it is the East Long Meadow Dog Park, so, you know,
Yeah.
we wanna make sure, you would wanna make sure whoever's gonna take it is probably taking it to that free incineration at Bondi's.
Right, yeah,
As
'cause
opposed
I think what we
to,
would do is probably let it accumulate to some degree and take like 1 load a week maybe, or every other week possibly, depending on, you know, how big the truck is and all that sort of thing.
It's 200 or 300 pounds.
yeah.
Well, you know, I was guessing based on last summer when we had about, it was running about between 100 and 150 pounds a week is what we were estimating at that time. But since on the subject of the town and the park and everything, it's kind of off this subject to a little bit of degree. But I know the discussion came up about the hours and the closing hours and things like that as well. We have had some volunteers that go there at sundown pretty much to kind of shoo everybody out, and it's worked pretty good. We don't really have any control over what happens after that. But on the other hand, it is part of Heritage Park. And Heritage Park has always had those hours to sunset or dusk or whatever it is. So, I don't think there's a need to secure our fence any more than what the park is secured, because it gets the same supervision, if you want to call it that Heritage Park gets. I think we're doing our part by shooing everybody out at that particular time, and I hope you agree with that. And I don't see Tom here, but
seems reasonable.
we are looking at registration forms for the dogs and special tags and things like that. So we're working on that as well. But just to kind of fill you in on that.
Like a special tag denoting that the dog is associated with your park, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because we're actually going to have
membership
on record. No, we don't want to call it a membership.
Yeah.
That's a different, because then it connotates that they have certain privileges.
Okay.
This is strictly a registration form.
Okay.
And as part of the disclaimer, we're going to say this does not necessarily guarantee you that you can use the park. You have to comply with all the rules, and your dog can't be aggressive. You have to.
Right.
It'll fall into that category. But with this tag that we have, it'll be easily identifiable from a distance, and people will be able to say that just the name of the dog, which everybody knows. Well, the name of all the dogs, even if you ask somebody coming in for the first time, that's the first thing people ask. And we'll have it on record, because it'll be alphabetical by dog name. Then we'll have all the information for the owners and contact information and everything else.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I think one other thing that has to be addressed is when the dog inspector or dog animal control officer was here last time, he reported there were 6 cases of dog bites reported to him after the fact, and there was no way of identifying the dog that bit the other dog. The people just took their dog immediately to the local vet to be treated. And I don't know if there's some way of putting a sign up or something that says, in case of a dog bite, like an automobile accident, you should at least exchange who you are and whose dog was involved in the incident to the other person, so they would be able to.
Well, we can put that.
And it's got to be notified to the animal control officer, because I think the dog at least has to be quarantined for so many days to make sure that they.
Well, that's one thing these tags and registration will identify, because they won't have that tag unless they have the rabies shots up to date. That's one of the main reasons why we have that, so that you won't have to track them down and say, do they have the shots and this and that. As far as identifying, dog bites and the dogs involved, we only have limited control over that ourselves.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you put a sign up there, so at least the people are aware that if there is an incident where a dog gets bitten, that the people should exchange their names and phone numbers like you do in an automobile accident, so after they get the dog treated, that they can make contact with the dog and or at least notify the animal control officer that there was an incident, and because he's saying he's not getting any reports of this incident.
He wouldn't get them from us, because I wouldn't know a lot of times.
Right.
In fact, I went after he brought that up. I actually went to the 2 local vets here, and obviously it's like doctor-patient. They're not going to tell us. The only thing that they would tell me, if anything, is that the dog's from East Long Meadow. If they're not from East Long Meadow, we wouldn't know anything.
Well, not all dogs are going to have these tags, right? So I think.
Well, we are going to enforce that. I mean, if they don't, we're going to have a set date. Probably, we're thinking maybe around May 1st or so that we're going to start enforcing that. So if the dog comes in without a tag, then we will what we will do is physically check the tags. So look for dates and that. And if they don't have it, or if it's out of date, then they can't come in the park. That's the bottom line to that. So we are going to decide, I mean, there'll be guests coming in, and there'll be other people that...
No, I understand that, so what if, but you're not always, the park's not always attended by,
No, correct. That's correct. It's not going to be 100%.
right, so I mean, by putting a simple sign up that says, in the event
Oh, yeah. no,
that this
it's a good idea.
occurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and no, I agree with that. Yeah.
Excuse me, my understanding is that there is information when dogs get into these situations and they go to the animal hospitals or the vets, that they, when they're tagged, that information, so the animal hospital contacts the town of East Long Meadow through that information. Now, perhaps because they, in these cases, may not have been East Long Meadow residents, that they may not have contacted our community, that there was an incident. Either that or in that information, I think that they're asked where it happens, that type of, those types of things. And if that information isn't forthcoming from the individual bringing their dog in or accurate, we may not be getting information that we should be. And the animal control officer said he had received information in any of the incidents. So it may be that they weren't East Long Meadow residents.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't, we have limited control over really, I mean, it's a dog park, we have controls that we try to put in place. I know initially when we were introducing the concept and everything, one of our promises, if you want to call it, was to monitor the park during busy hours during the first season. I mean, that's pretty much over, but we not only have increased the number of monitors that we have now, but we are there more often, and we plan on to continue that.
Good.
So we're probably, especially as the weather gets warmer, we'll be there even more hours than we were this past season. So I would expect that.
Excellent. All right, so barrels and bags we can
Yes, sir.
accommodate, and you'll look into finding the way to get it to the proper, location.
Yeah.
Board of Health don't make a comment on anything?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Pete Punderson, Board of Health. Hi, Bill. I appreciate your growing pains, and I appreciate you trying to work your way through it. If you were to go to a once or even bi-weekly trip to the state down to the Bondies, where would you store the stuff in between times? Would it be off the premises?
Yeah, it'd be
Would
off-site.
Would be, okay.
It'd be off-site, yeah. I think that'd be, I mean, in my own mind, I had thoughts of, having some sort of larger container somewhere in a parking lot, but I don't even think that's a good idea, to be honest with you.
Now, that would be a health issue then.
Yeah, I don't like that idea anyway. Who wants to pull into a parking lot and have to deal with that in the middle of the summer? So, no, I think, individuals, I think, would either, take it, we haven't decided yet, let's put it that way. They'd either take it to their own residence, or we'd find a place that would be suitable before we take it down altogether.
Okay. Just one other thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe on your dog park or bark park rules, it says that all licenses must be affixed to the collars of the dogs.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Maybe just a little bit of pointing out, put some other monitors there, the rules, so people just, oh, by the way, did you read the rules, so that it's less burden on you and puts more burden on the people coming.
Well, and that brings up a good question. And again, with Tom not here, I'd like to run it by him, is that, and I guess it would depend on his confidence level with us. If we had the identifiable tag, and right now we're thinking of a gold dog tag kind of a thing, and if they have that on, to us, they don't get that unless they are licensed and have the rabies license or shots as well. Would it be acceptable to him or to everyone to have that on in lieu of the other tags?
I'm not sure. I can discuss it with him, or you can call Tom.
Yeah, I can talk.
But it does state that the license is to be, the actual dog license is to be affixed to the collar, and that's the town bylaw anyway.
I
So
understand
that's,
that.
for the dog to be in the town, it's supposed to have it on it. Another tag saying that it's been cleared, I mean, that sounds like a good idea, I think.
Yeah, and let's face it, the town has never had a dog park before.
Right.
And I'm not looking to change the rules of the park, of the town at all, but it might make it easier for everybody involved. There's a lot of people that come to the park purposely don't have the tags on because they either lose them or the dogs, bite them off and they don't want all those tags on. So, and I've heard a lot of that already, is that just adding another tag, now some of them are gonna have up to 4 tags, So if that's something that we can work through over the next few months, I think I think it'd be a positive step, but that's something we can discuss with Tom especially.
Well, we
The
also,
bylaw does state that the tag has to be
I know,
dogs.
I know it does.
I think you're going to have to kind of,
Well, yeah, but remember,
Come up with that.
the town bylaws also said that dogs will be on leashes all the time. And we have an area where dogs are not required to be on leash now. So we worked through that.
even more reason to have the tag, I would say. But I'm not going to get banter back and forth, but just
Okay.
talk with Tom.
Yeah, okay.
He's the guy to talk with. We do work together
Yeah.
as a Board of Health, but I would like to have you discuss that.
Absolutely, oh yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
So does this mean that pickup will stop as of today? Is that what we're looking at?
That's my understanding, correct? And we'll bring out maybe an extra barrel out there and supply some bags. And
Yeah.
Now, could you put bags at the bottom of the barrel?
chances are we would throw half a dozen in the empty barrel and then put the bag in with the rubber band that goes around so
Right.
you have a little supply in each barrel.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to figure out when there's stuff in it, though, what are you gonna do with them? You have to work something out as to how they get the bags.
Well, John, I'll throw like
Oh, yeah.
half a dozen into the empty barrel and then put a bag inside of it.
That's the last time it's empty, though.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because...
That's the last time it's empty. From then on, they're doing the emptying, and it'll have stuff in it.
What if you,
But when they pull that bag out, there's 4 or
All
5.
right, after those 5, what's...
Oh, yeah, no, we'll come to it.
So you guys just need to come up with how we're gonna do
I'll
that.
do that. I just, but, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is Attorney Donahue. He's going to talk to us about some water tower RFP cellular leasing. Probably more than I need.
Exciting topic.
I need to know, but tell us how it works and what we need to do.
Well, currently, the lease with Verizon for the tower that was amended or altered when the new tower went up and they moved over to it is scheduled to expire this spring, I believe sometime in late April or early May. And Verizon had contacted the procurement officer about whether an RFP was going to go out to lease that space. And so, assuming that the town still wished to generate revenue from the use of the tower for cellular communication, the town administrator / procurement officer went to the Board of Selectmen and asked them for a designation that the area on the tower where the current antenna for Verizon are located were surplus property. Surplus in the sense that they're not needed by the town. One of the requirements of the bidding laws, which the town has found, is that if municipal property is going to be rented or leased, there has to be a determination by the town boards that are involved that the property is not required and necessary for municipal use, but it's surplus. It can be used for commercial or rental use by a third party, not the municipality. So the Board of Selectmen did take that vote and determined in its, to the extent that it is involved, that there was no need for that property for municipal uses. In actuality, though, the tower is really under the direct control of the Board of Public Works, and that there's determination that this board would also have to make. Now, if you determine that you don't need it for any municipal purposes, as the Board of Selectmen already has, then the property will be able to go out to bid. If you determine that there's a need, or you think there may be a need, that tower space be utilized for some type of municipal communication facility, then we probably would not go out to bid.
And it'll have a length of duration probably. Some 5 or 10 years, or this is a 99 year?
I think Verizon's looking for a total 20-year lease.
20 year.
Similar to what they had.
And they need the whole top of the tower, or we can give them
The area where they are now.
an apportioned amount of surplus?
Right, the portion where they are now. And one of the reasons, if I could, before you get into questions,
Yeah.
because I'm getting older and I'll forget. One of the reasons the Board of Selectmen are involved in this is that when the original lease was written back in 1993, I believe, it was executed by both boards, Board of Public Works and the Board of Selectmen. And I was not counsel at the time. I don't know why that was done, but in going forward, in talking with the procurement officer, we just determined that we should keep the same format that had been done before unless the board's determined there should be a different format. So that's why both are involved in this process.
Yes, John.
Just to clarify now what Verizon is leasing, in my understanding, is it's not just the antenna space on top or the railing that the antennas are affixed to, but there's conduit that runs throughout the water tank, excuse me, the control room, underground outside the property to an area where they have installed a modular structure, their switching gear and generator. So it's the entire set.
Yeah, and so my question was more, do we have to give up the possibility that another service wants some space to the extent that it's possible, wants some space up there and some more conduit down in another building? Is it we're not giving up an exclusivity to it?
No.
It's just a ability for them to utilize it.
Right. And your determination of whether the entire ring is surplus or whether just the area where Verizon is currently located, that's really your determination. You want to do it. I mean, you could declare it all surplus, and that opens up any additional space up there for other providers.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Well, yeah, so the part I'm caught up in is just how it gets written. In other words, if we say the whole thing is surplus and then they say we want the whole thing, then to my way of thinking, we've just boxed ourselves out from other opportunities in the future. If we say it's all surplus right now, but we're only gonna allow them, when they bid it, this pie on top of the tower,
The existing.
this many conduits down the tower and that building, it would allow us the possibility for some more slices on top.
Right.
And some more buildings and conduit if it would allow it.
Right.
Just so we're not boxed in with some 20-year, oh, we gave it to them and now somebody else comes along and we can't do it.
Now, my understanding of the RFP as it's being drafted is to address the current location
Okay.
where Verizon is. They're not looking to expand, and they don't take the entire ring now. So that is what the RFP is for. It's not expanding it at all.
Okay.
So the ability is there. The only limitation that would exist for future, under the standard telecommunication, at least I say standard in the broad sense, but is that generally most telecommunication leases have a provision that you can lease to other entities as long as the system that the other entities are using do not interfere significantly with the ability of the existing tenant.
Right.
And usually it's a spacing thing that's more than anything else, I believe now. So I think...
And I would understand that to be, I mean,
That's reasonable.
yeah, maybe there's somebody who wants to put mirrors up there or something.
It's not going to exceed what they're using right now. And anything else wouldn't interfere.
What do you think?
I agree.
What do you think?
That's fine.
Anybody else from our department?
I just have one question, because we have obviously, our workshop is up there. We have all the conduit and everything that's running through that space. My only concern is obviously after the contract's awarded, them coming in and saying we can't have any of our equipment within so many feet of their wires and everything else.
The way to address that would be for the department to get to the procurement officer concerns that they have with respect to that, so we can build it into the RFP.
All right, so you can get that to Nick? Nick, right? Nick got that one? All right, so if you can get that to Nick, that would be great.
So when they service this thing right now, do we send somebody up there from the water department to be with it at all times?
I don't know
How's
about
that-
it
how's that
all
happen?
times. They've been up there probably twice since the tower was built. And basically, it's let them in. I don't know if the employees stayed or not, because they need access into the tank so they can go up through the man tube to reach the top.
Right.
Because that's the way they have to access the top of the tank. There's no outside ladder.
We have had an individual stay with them when they've gone up to do work in the water tower. We let them in, we stay with them and lock up when they're gone.
Okay.
So it's under control at
So
all
we need a
times?
vote? Is this a board vote for this to be surplus?
Right.
All right, somebody want to?
I make a motion that we designate the, what would you call it, the water tank, help me with
The current space?
Current space that is being leased, be renewed for,
Surplus property and not needed by the town for any municipal purpose.
so moved.
Did you get it? Got it?
Second.
Any further discussion? No? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Opposed? All right.
that's number one.
Snow plowing of the rail trail. Got you a couple other quick ones.
That's right.
Snow plowing of the rail trail, so when we first did the rail trail, we said we weren't gonna plow it. This season has brought to our attention where we've had like minimal snow, but then it's become very icy, and people are walking it anyways. So there's been conversation around plowing it. Larger than that, there's been a volunteer or more from the public sector who said they would plow it so long as they weren't liable for the slip, trip, or fall. It's my understanding that whoever removes the snow is liable for the slip, trip, or fall. Is there any way to write anything with Maya, the town, East Long Meadow, or something where if somebody wants to volunteer, a private person wants to plow it, that they then won't be subject to or would be protected under our insurance somehow?
Well, there are a number of questions here. You can always procure a rider to an insurance policy that insures against other entities or insures other entities with respect to services they're performing. The question is the cost and the reason going forward, what type of precedent you're establishing or potentially establishing. So yes, you could get insurance coverage. I don't know what the cost would be. And you would have to know who the individuals are that you're hiring, number one. Number two, the question that comes to my mind would be, if it's a matter of plowing, why, and you determine that the plowing should be done, why wouldn't the DPW part it as part of their normal plowing operations? And rather than go into the process of adding non-municipal individuals to be covered under the municipal policy. But that's an alternative.
All good questions. We just didn't know if
Yeah, we just had somebody come in and
they said they volunteer.
volunteer to do it, just as they want to help the community. They use the rail trail and they'd like to see it used more. What about if we put an RFP out to plow the rail trail and this individual comes in and bids $1 a year? Can that be, and then, but
they still don't want the liability.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the liability off them.
Well, they would still be, as a contractor, our standard contract requires all contractors to provide
Insurance, okay.
liability insurance that will catch the town from claims made in connection with work that they perform. So it's still, the liability issue is still going to be there.
We can't
And
indemnify
also,
them in any way.
You can't prevent a third party from making the claim. Whether they would recover is another story, but
Now, what happens in the city of Springfield where they have outside snow plowing contractors that do the plowing?
well, I can't speak to Springfield. I can speak to West Springfield.
Okay.
West Springfield would execute independent contractor agreements with each snowplow, setting the vehicle that was being hired and the rate that was going to be paid for the vehicle, and requiring them to produce a policy of insurance satisfactory to the Director of Public Works that the interests of the town were protected for the work that they were doing.
Now, that would cover if they hit an automobile, but what if they're plowing a street and 3 days later somebody says, I tripped and fell on that street? Is they going to go back to how are they?
They have to, they can make the claim,
Yeah.
but it's their insurance that defends the claim. Because we would turn around and say, the director would say, that street was your responsibility to plow. So the issue really, though, for snow plowing is the damage or the injury was the result of the snow and ice itself, not the fact that the road necessarily had a pothole and the person fell. So really did not face a lot of claims with that. The more common claim was the vehicle, parked vehicle that was struck by a plow or some other indication. I will tell you this, that in the last year, our Supreme Judicial Court has changed the law with respect to liability for slip and fall with respect to ice and snow. In the past 250 years, if you were a property owner, in private, individual, company, municipal, and we had a snowstorm or an ice storm, and someone went out and fell, all right? As long as you, as the property owner, hadn't done or hired someone to do something that changed the configuration of the original snow or ice storm, you had no liability to that individual. You only had liability if there was some alteration of the natural falling of the snow or the ice. The new law is, the court doesn't care. If somebody slips or falls on your property now because of ice and snow, whether you shoveled it or you didn't shovel it, whether you sanded it or you didn't sand it, if they can show that you were negligent in some fashion, they have a right to make a claim and try to recover their damages in connection with that. So, with relation to the rail trail, where 2 years ago, not plowing the rail trail was the advice that I gave to the board, because you're not going to be subject to people's claims if they slip and fall on the ice and snow. If you just leave it alone, you're okay. Now, whether you plow it or don't plow it, and someone decides to run or walk or do something on the rail trail, that's permitted. Snowmobiling and all that stuff, which is not permitted, would not be covered. But walking on it and falling down, you're still going to be liable. So that advice is sort of a different animal. So now it's a determination of whether you're going to change the policy of closing the trail. The trail's closed, so anybody who goes on it now is technically a trespasser. And you only owe a duty to a trespasser to avoid wanton and willful conduct, which means you don't go out and do anything that creates a problem for them. So my suggestion would be to consider leaving it alone and have it posted as closed, and anyone using it is a trespasser.
Which it isn't posted. So you're saying it should be, if it's going to be closed, it should be posted as closed.
Right.
Or if we're going to open it, plow it.
Open it and plow it.
Because it'd be safer
So at least
treated
get the
as
snow
opposed
off of there,
to
'cause
And we
if
could
somebody-
contact Maya to see if
what the cost
if
is.
they
If there was
could add a
a
rider on there just to, because it's part of snow plowing, or
Right.
whether they want to charge us for a binder to go on there.
I think if the board makes a determination of a couple of different options that you wanted to do, my suggestion would be perhaps have the director talk with the procurement officer, town administrator, to get quotes and give you an idea of what the cost would be for those things and whether you want to go forward.
Got time for one more?
Sure.
Solterra electricity agreement. Can you tell us a little bit more?
This, as you know, that they approached the board, this is a contract with an energy procurement company who is either going to build or acquire solar energy facilities. And under the statutory structure, apparently, there is a preferred vendor that they could sell to, which would be the town, who could then reuse or resell some of the energy that they didn't need. And the projections that this company has given to the department is that over a course of a year, I think you would say $125,000. And so I was given the document, which you have a copy, along with the letter of my concerns about or suggestions for some of the changes to the contract. But my major concern, and the one that I had mentioned to Sean a couple of weeks ago, was in the base contract prepared by SJA Solar, there are a couple of paragraphs that clearly state that SJA is having the town certify and agree that it has done an independent analysis, that it is determined that the representations that are being made are accurate, that the savings are going to be reasonably possible. And my understanding and everything that came to me, the only information we really have about any savings or other aspects of this came from SJA representatives. And so, I mean, I can negotiate a contract for the board. I don't know, and I don't want to take on that responsibility, is I do not understand enough about the inner workings of the energy industry to be able to review the contract and tell you as a board that it's a good contract or a bad contract to decide that the savings that are projected by this company will actually come into existence, and that the repurchasers of the energy that this agreement is telling you you are required to purchase from them are actually out there and will be available. And my suggestion has been that before any document was signed with this vendor or any other energy vendor, that it be reviewed by an energy professional consultant hired by the town, Board of Public Works, Board of Selectmen, whatever board is going to be in charge of energy, to determine that the representations that are being made with respect to the savings are actually representations that are accurate, and you will have those savings or some
So
similar.
Bruce should engage in that?
How long of a contract would they be looking for?
Actually,
They're looking for a 20-year contract.
meeting tomorrow to discuss this whole.
And this technology is changing pretty fast, so the first 5 or 10 years, it might be doing what it's supposed to do, but the next 10 years could be the opposite.
Possible. But I mean, my concern really is, I can't even tell you that the first year
Exactly.
is an honest, good representation. I don't know enough about the industry to say that what they're saying is the case. I know that the facility they're projecting isn't built yet. So that's another wild card into the mix as to how you're going to apply this or how it's going to be applied.
All right, so Dave, Bruce, Sean, and Nick are going to meet tomorrow
Yes.
and kind of take this one in, run it around and see where we got to go with it so we do the right things. Make
I
sure.
have existing contracts, obviously, for Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative Consortium through 7 or 8 towns, which we purchase bulk energy. So I have to check, obviously, our existing contracts, how they conflict with this new proposal.
All right. Which is the prudent thing to do, grab it,
I think
investigate it, and
have people understand it. My experience with contracts that are this specialized is that there are provisions in there dealing with the energy you're going to be purchasing, the energy you're going to be reselling, the costs, and how the formulas are going to be worked. I don't have the expertise to be able to tell you those are good or bad or what those languages should be.
Okay.
And the consultant and their people should come in with the language that should be there, or say, no, the language that's being proposed is good for you. So you have a level of comfort that what's being represented to you is actually what's going to happen, assuming everything goes together.
and that's what you'll do. Awesome. Okay. I don't know if we can get you to stay a little bit longer. We got 2 quick items and then an executive session that I wouldn't mind if you would hang out.
Your wish is mine.
We don't get you that often.
I've been married a lot.
Next item is our 5:20 PM. How we doing? Attorney Richard Hayes, Jay Talbot, and Alice. Okay. Do we want Pete to hang? Do we want Pete to stay? Yeah, can you hang? For executive?
Oh, okay.
We got one thing there. Good evening.
I hope it won't take too much of your time. Our firm is now approaching, actually into our 4th decade
Nice.
together with you folks. And 4 of you at the table have been around for a lot of that time. Mr. Wilson, I haven't had much work with you, but I've enjoyed working with the board, and our firm has been, I think it's been a successful enterprise. As I enter what I took from academia, the idea that maybe I'm going to become a lawyer emeritus or something of that nature, and I'm interested in making sure that as new people come in and work with your group, that everybody is happy with that process and that transition. And I want to introduce to you Jay and Alice, who I hope will be the assignees to take the major brunt of the work of this board going forward. And they're both fully qualified, and I'll be around to give them a little bit of history, as we need history for anything that might come up with historical references. But that's really the only purpose that I wanted to get together tonight, and to make sure that there was a transition that made sense, and to answer any questions that you might have for going forward. Any other issues that might come up that need to be discussed.
My understanding, Jay works with the other departments currently?
Yes, I'm currently working on the town side. Have been doing that for a few years now.
Police, fire, and town hall, or?
Town hall employees. I'm also actually involved in other municipalities doing their collective bargaining, their grievance hearings, their arbitrations. So I've certainly worked with other DPWs, other police departments, fire departments, things like that. So I've been doing mostly the public sector for the firm.
What other communities?
I've been doing work actually for the city of Springfield. I've handled matters for that on the police side, school side, town of Ware, city of Holyoke, city of Chicopee, Westfield, Greenfield, Montague. I'm trying to think what else I've been. You know, as well as, you know, other housing authorities here in East Long Meadow, as well as in Springfield. So those are the communities I've been working with.
You work with East Long Meadow Housing Authority?
I do. So, you know, that's certainly been an interesting experience, you know, but a good one. And it's, you know, I think that's what our firm does. We're handling municipal clients that are huge as far as the city of Springfield and work done for them, down to 2.5 members in a unit with the East Long Meadow Housing Authority.
Right.
It's been fun.
Okay. And Alice?
I also,
same thing?
Yep, I do a lot of municipal collective bargaining. I also do a lot of employment law. My focus is really on employment discrimination law, but I do a lot of collective bargaining too. I do Long Meadow, DPW, a few housing authorities, including Chicopee Housing Authority, and a lot of work for the city of Holyoke.
Questions, thoughts, comments? Anybody as tenacious as you? Huh?
Oh, I'm sure that you won't find any lack of tenacity.
We did before the last one, so I just want to make sure we get another.
That's why we're here.
Another pit bull.
Anything?
Any litigation experience, or?
I began my career as a prosecutor, so I handled numerous Superior Court trials. In fact, I was chief of the Child Abuse Unit up in the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. That's where I got my feet wet, so to speak, every day in court. I then moved on to the AG's office, where I switched and did actually paper cases in their insurance fraud bureau, tried cases in the Superior Court, handled investigations, and then went with the parole board. So I've got the public background. Served as their general counsel for a number of years, where I was sort of got the bug for the employment side, collective bargaining, sitting at the table on the state level with the parole officers union, and then was fortunate enough to run with that experience and join Sullivan, Hayes and Quinn. So you know, it's been a lot of fun, but I certainly have had the experience along the way, especially in court.
Okay, and you're gonna hang for exec too, right? Did you know that? We need you to hang for exec. All right. All right. Lots of questions, hang in there. We got one quick thing, couple quick things, and then we're gonna go exec, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Review the 2012 DPW Annual Town Report. I only found on page 3, I loved it. You got changes?
I notified them.
All right.
Just a couple.
I just saw page 3 right here, these work order or this, the work order.
Okay.
It's either something there has to
Got
be
it.
plural or different. Other than that, I loved it.
Got it.
So. All right, lots of great work. Excellent amount of things accomplished when you read that and go, whoa.
Well, we try to keep it at 3 pages, but we
Right,
could go
you
on
go out
and
for
on.
days, I know, but still a lot of good stuff, so. Other business?
You have a
Oh,
list
yeah.
of companies there for the...
I do, you're correct. So I'd like to publicly thank the companies that helped us with our very successful Christmas tree pickup on January 6th. We had several from town. It's kind of encouraging to see that kind of participation and community involvement. So just want to read them off. Mex Landscaping, Deco's Landscaping, Page Landscaping, G&A Landscaping, AJ Porfilio Landscaping Design, Bart Truck, Holly's Auto Repair, WB Hill, Expert Tree Service, Clean Cut Landscaping, and Petronero Landscaping. So we want to thank everybody for their participation and making that successful for us.
In your packet, I gave you a breakdown of the building maintenance ongoing stuff. Bruce, did you want to...
Sure. Current projects that we discussed in the past, the Bircham Park window issues we were having, those 100 new sashes were delivered on January 8th. So that project will be moving forward, obviously, this spring once the weather permits, as far as replacing the real trouble units. Also, we currently are working on a new reception counter for the assessor's office. The LCAT studio project, all the sheetrock has been installed, taped, painted, air handling units, and all the related ductwork has been installed. Rough plumbing is complete. Drop ceiling grid has been installed along with all the lighting fixtures. We have scheduled a new tie-in to the new service that we provided for that studio is scheduled for February 16th. It's going to just be a temporary shutdown to tie in our new feed, the new breaker that's been scheduled with National Grid. It should only take about an hour.
School vacation week.
Yes, that's the beginning. Yes, it's a Saturday morning at 7 a.m.
Cool.
As far as the designer selection committee, the school facility study, SMMA out of Cambridge, Mass, was selected for that study. We did have a kickoff meeting on January 3rd with the superintendent of schools and all the principals to start that process. I've currently supplied the firm with all the architectural plans that I have to them, and we're continuing to move forward. Also, for the Design Select Committee, the Pine Knoll Pool Replacement Project, the firm chosen was Bardman Hendry, an archetype out of Boston, Mass. Last week, on January 24th, we did meet with Tom Scarlata from that firm and discussed preliminary drawings, which Mr. Drury had drawn up from, I believe it's Aquatic Development Corporation. So we are starting that process also to get some preliminary plans drawn and get approval from the Rec Commission and Colin Drury to begin the bidding process for that. We are on an aggressive schedule, obviously. We're going to try to get the whole project completed, obviously, before camp opens in June.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. We're going to be obviously involved quite extensively. I'm thinking we're going to probably be needing a new service up there, electrical service, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself until the engineer comes up with some plans for us. Also, on the design select committee again for the municipal space study, RFQ was open on January 3rd at 12 p.m. 6 firms submitted proposals. The Design Select Committee met again on January 16th, ranked the firms for qualifications. The firm chosen for that municipal space study was Reinhardt Associates out of Agawam, Mass. We had a kickoff meeting on Monday, yesterday, to start that process and moving forward and developing our space needs.
Excellent. Good stuff. Okay. Truck 49?
Truck 49.
Is that what we're talking about?
Truck 49.
Truck 49.
I got a copy of an email I received today from the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. As you can see by reading it, he is asking if we can pay for the funding for Truck 49 out of the water fund. I give you some supporting documentation. The second page in shows you the 5 vehicles that we have asked for, totaling $408,000. As you recall from our initial discussion with the Capital Committee, we agreed to fund Truck 15 50/50 from the water fund and the sewer fund. And then I give you updated breakdown of the water and sewer funds. These are as accurate as they're going to get. I've got the updated numbers from the town accountant's office. It's all plugged in here. This is all pretty close. As you can see, in the water fund fiscal year 2014, we'll be taking almost $122,000 out of the undesignated fund for the purpose of replacement of the Savoy Avenue water main and 1/2 of truck number 15. And then farther down the sheet, you can see what the balances will be as time goes on.
By the time we get to 16, it's starting to get thin, no?
Well, it does. Of course, that does not, there's no increased water rates plugged in there anywhere along the line.
Right.
It's flat rate.
I'm just doing some quick math there. So basically, this is where in the past we rarely used water and sewer to buy equipment.
Right.
Like backhoes, bobcats, pickup trucks, and water trucks. On occasion, we have purchased, I believe, a backhoe, and I believe a bobcat, because we said, hey, we use it almost exclusively for that. This water truck does fall into that category, but I think it's worth noting, our water bill and sewer bills, if you look at the next 2 pages of support information that you have, the aggregate of the two, if you add the two of them together, 2004 it was $4.45. It stayed the same until 7, and it went to $4.50. It stayed the same until 2010, and it went to $4.60, and we've held $4.60. A combination of $2.20 and $2.40 for the past 3 years. Before that, it was $2.10 and $2.50. We were kind of shifting it back and forth to keep our balance at a number that was significantly higher than where we're headed right now. So it's really just for us to make sure we're comfortable that we only have, at the end of 16, 295 in water and 142 in sewer. If something big happens, we're coming back to the
We got
emergency
a problem,
fund.
yeah. We're gonna have a problem by then.
Yeah.
Are we?
Or we have to, in April, we're gonna have the discussion and decision to raise water rates. So in the attempt to keep taxes down, but we need the equipment, they're asking us to shift the purchase of that to the water fund.
Which is gonna raise the
Which is
water
gonna raise the water rate, which is just a different way of getting the money. So it's, you just need to be very aware of what's going on here and make the right decision. We need the equipment.
No, I know we need the equipment. I mean, my question to Dave would be, are we anticipating any water rate increases from Springfield?
We are, and the operating budget has been adjusted to reflect that. It's going to go up, I believe it's $70,000.
Yeah, okay. That's already been calculated in here.
We meet with capital again to discuss this.
Not necessarily, no.
Not necessarily.
These,
Well, I mean, I would think that we write back, the response going back to Eric is we need the equipment. We publicly discussed it at our first Public Works meeting, and, you know, the fact is we need the equipment. If they see the need for us to pull it out of water and, you know, the water budget, then they're probably affecting our increase in the water rate. And if that's an acceptable way to kind of balance things, we're going to have more dialogue. Something to that effect, in other words, right?
I don't see any other option because
We need
by the time we get to 16, we're not gonna have enough money in there if we got a major problem.
Right.
The only other option is to see if they'll switch 15 and 49. We'll be trying 49 with the water and sewer fund, and they better...
Put 15 back in.
15 back in, which is $30,000
less. So you could run that into the letter as well.
That could be an option, yeah.
If they put this back in and we'll put that out, it actually would help us because the sewer fund is lower than the water fund. So that would be a good, reasonable trade. We'll do that?
Yeah.
All right, let us know what he said.
That's a good idea.
All right.
Goes from years of wisdom.
Did that, schedule the next meeting? Other business, wait, yep, other business.
Well, we touched upon it, I think we did. I sent you a notice, this coming Thursday, 7 PM.
Appropriations meeting.
Council
I'll be
on
there.
Aging Appropriations meeting.
I'll be there.
Wouldn't miss it for anything.
What do we got?
Appropriation, 7 o'clock Thursday.
This Thursday?
Yeah.
7 o'clock?
Got you covered if you miss it.
That's all.
Already
yeah.
got it in my phone.
Regarding scheduling of meetings, we remember we talked, we wanted to get the detention basin on the agenda for
Yes,
meetings coming up.
yes,
Is it possible to schedule
yes,
2 meetings out?
yes. So, February 12th? February 12th?
You got it.
Tuesday the 12th?
To 5 o'clock.
I'll be away, so have it without me.
All right.
Oh, without you?
Yeah.
Won't be the
February
17th.
26th? February 26th?
Yep, I'll be there.
All right, so our next 2 meetings are scheduled for February 12th, 5 PM, Service Building, February 26th, 5 PM, Service Building. All right, any other business?
No.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn to go into executive session, not to return to open session for the purposes of collective bargaining.
Second the motion.
Roll call. Tom?
Thomas Wilson.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
What did it say, the 26th one?